Good afternoon. Very pleased to welcome Ms. Julie Mallon from Nurture to Sleep. As you know, we are in the exam period, and many teenagers and many kids are suffering and have sleep disorders. What can you tell us to lessen and smoothen this period for kids?
So first of all, we want to be able to recognize that a teenage sleep is very different from a child or an adult sleep.
Yes.
There is a very famous researcher called Dr. Mary Cascada.
Yes.
And she was a guest in this country and went to lecture at a number of schools.
Yes.
And she was the person who discovered that teenagers' sleep
Yes.
is very different. Now what that means is, with a young child, their melatonin, their circadian rhythm is initiated early in the evening, such as somewhere between 6 and 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
And then it goes throughout the night, almost like in that wave and then by the morning, somewhere between 6 and 6:30,
Yes.
the melatonin is now gone.
Yes.
Then we look at teenagers. Now with teenagers, their melatonin does not actually kick in until somewhere that can be anything between 10 and 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
So you've heard the adage from everyone, you can't get teenagers to sleep at night and then you can't get them up in the morning.
Yes.
And that is because physiologically it is impossible for them to fall asleep and get up in the morning. Now there's been a number of studies where they've looked at how we can address this situation. They did this huge scientific exercise in America and then also in London, and the results were really quite startling.
Yeah.
And what they discovered was when a teenager started school later,
Yes.
their results were off the scale in
Yes.
terms of improvement.
Yes.
The aggressive behaviour from teenagers dropped dramatically. There was less exclusion from school, and the teenagers were much more compliant.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, there was one thing that they weren't prepared for with this study. They knew that yes, the results would go up. They knew that the behaviour of the teenagers, they'd be more compliant. But what they didn't were prepared for was that the number of accidents reduced on the road by teenagers by 78%. So their reaction time was so much faster and safer. So that's the first thing to recognise, that the sleep of a teenager is very, very different.
Yeah. So the best time for him to sleep?
So the best time, again, about having that bedtime routine. The routine, again, is so significant that we are cueing the brain about what comes next. Again, there's been a number of studies that have shown us, and it crossed all socioeconomic groups.
Yes.
And what they discovered was when the parents of teenagers took charge of the bedtime of the teenagers, they slept longer and slept better. So first of all, it's about knowing the importance of the routine with our teenagers, and us also taking charge. There's a school here in Dubai, Jumeirah Baccalaureate School, and they were one of the very first schools to implement later start time. So the
For the
teenagers-
upper classes?
Yes, yeah, for the secondary school. So their teenagers, they start school somewhere between 8:30 and 8:45, which I know isn't that much later, but it is significantly later than they were starting.
Okay.
So that was the first thing, which has been really positive. But equally, they sent out a questionnaire to all the teenagers in the school, and there's something like 800 in the school. And it was a wellness questionnaire. And the children and teenagers were asked, would you like your parents to tell you it's bedtime, or would you prefer that they just let you do
On your own?
yourself? 83% of those teenagers came back and said, I'd like my parents to tell me. This is telling us our children need us to be parents.
Yes.
So now, it's not just about our children need us to be parents, it has to be a collaborative approach. So we want our children to know about the importance of the science of the sleep, and our teenagers to know, so what is an optimal time? And things like, for example, there are so many studies that when our children are sleeping better, that it will improve all these other skills, such as, if they go to the gym, their performance in the gym is going to be enhanced by better sleep.
Yeah.
And of course, teenagers
Yeah.
are very much about their appearance.
Absolutely.
So that's something. The other thing is, we know there's lots of wonderful studies that when we sleep better, when our teenagers sleep better, the incidence of acne and other skin conditions with our teenagers
Yes.
is definitely better because it regulates all these different hormones in our body.
Yeah. And how would that impact also their academic performance?
Memory restoration, absolutely memory restoration. So for example, as we sleep at night, one sleep cycle of teenagers and adults is 90 minutes.
Yes.
Now within that 90-minute cycle, there are 4 phases. So we have stage 1, which is when we are falling asleep. We then come out of stage 1 into stage 2, which again is still quite light sleep. But stage 2, we've discovered now fairly recently about the importance of stage 2, where it releases these electrical bursts of energy called sleep spindles. Now, these are responsible for specific memories. So all of the phases of our sleep are of equal importance. Now, as we come out of stage 2 with the sleep spindles, we then go into that deep restorative sleep. And then once we come out of stage 3, now we go into the rapid eye movement. Now the rapid eye movement is that emotional therapy that it's free therapy basically, because it helps us make sense of all the things that have happened throughout the day. Now, as we approach the time where it is exams, everyone is really stressed.
Yes.
If we are not getting sufficient rapid eye movement sleep, then we haven't got the emotional bandwidth to help to calm ourselves, to regulate, so that we can access parts of the brain which is going to deliver those very important memories and help us really succeed in these tests.
So the best time, how many hours per day for a teenager? And from best time to what time?
So if we're thinking about all that this brain, this teenage brain needs to has to access in terms of memory and all the social skills and interactions and all the stresses, certainly somewhere between 9 and 10 hours
of sleep per day for a 15-year-old or 18-year-old teenager. And from what time to what time? So local time?
So again, somewhere between, we want our teenagers to be really asleep by 11. This is optimal. Be asleep by 11 o'clock, and so they're waking up by 6:30.
All right.
That's really what we're looking at, optimal timing.
So 7.5 hours.
Yeah, but again, it's looking at the sleep needs. So for example, I know that I'm a 7-hour sleeper, whereas my husband is easily a 9-hour sleeper.
Why is that?
It's all unique to our own sleep requirement. You know, no person has the exact same sleep requirements. We are all, it's our DNA and it's the genetics of our sleep. That's what it's about. So I'm a 7-hour sleeper.
It's not about laziness or about...
Not at all. I'm a 7-hour sleeper. My husband's a 9-hour sleeper. My eldest daughter is a 9-hour sleeper like her father. My second daughter is like me, 7. And then my youngest daughter, she would love to be a 7-hour sleeper, but actually she's a 9-hour sleeper. So it's about our genetics.
And deviating might be dangerous or non-constructive.
Absolutely non-constructive, but also things like, for example, if we are not getting our sleep need, then we are much more likely to have a road traffic accident. We are not operating at our optimal. So that's why, and we need to know what our optimal need. Now, how I know that I'm a 7-hour sleeper, I'd like to say never, but maybe there's the odd time, do not require an alarm clock. I wake up before my alarm. So that cues me that I've had enough sleep and that has met my sleep requirement.
Let's shift now to the senior executives. We have been seeing a lot of senior executives or basically encountering sleep disorders, especially in a very tense, very fast-paced country such as the UAE or across the region with all the growth that we are witnessing. How can we develop the sleeping process of senior executives?
So I think the first thing that we need to do is to recognise the importance of sleep. You know, there isn't a single condition that is not impacted by poor sleep. And the research is becoming more and more evident about the importance of it. So we need to know what is going to give us our optimal sleep. Now, the thing here is that, yes, as a CEO or, you know, an executive, his environment or her environment is going to be very stressful. But this person has to find their strategy that is going to allow them to, first of all, know what their sleep requirement is, and then start to put in place changes that are going to work towards it. Now, as human beings, we want to have the maximum impact with the least effort. That's just...
So what are the steps that executives need to do?
So one of the most important factors here is light. Light is going to cue the brain of releasing that very important sleep hormone, melatonin, when it is being released.
Yes.
So the first thing in the morning, for example, we need to get out, that exec needs to get outside and have exposure to natural light.
Yes.
Now, we also know that if you stand by a window to get the natural light, it is 50% less effective.
Okay.
So 50 times.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is just to step outside for anywhere between 2 to 10 minutes. So we now have got that light, which is going to really help develop and activate what we call our circadian rhythm.
So,
And recognise that our sleep in the evening
Yeah.
starts from the very second we wake up in the morning.
okay, so that's one, light.
Yep.
The second
So
one?
light. The second one is recognising that sleep is very dehydrating. So again, in the morning when we wake up, we want to start by really hydrating ourselves in preparation for our night's sleep. So having water as soon as we wake up, and certainly the guidelines are somewhere between 600 and 900 mils of water.
Yeah.
So that will be the second one. Another really good trigger for our nighttime sleep is that we do just a couple of stretches. That's all.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why these stretches are going to help for our nighttime sleep is when we have this physical expenditure of the body, it signals to the brain to prepare for the release of the human growth hormone.
Yeah.
Now, that human growth hormone is going to restore and repair our body at night.
So stretches before going to bed?
Yep. No, in the morning.
In the
All
morning.
these three things
Okay.
are in the morning.
Okay.
Then we also need to look at our caffeine intake. We need to, now, the research is absolutely not conclusive about whether caffeine is a good thing or not.
Yes.
You know, we know that caffeine has got the most wonderful antioxidant properties, but we also know that after 2 to 3, then it isn't going to benefit us.
Yeah.
So
So better one coffee per day in the morning?
It very much depends on you in that you may metabolize the
Yes.
caffeine at a very different pace from
Yeah.
me. I know that if I drink caffeine after 2 o'clock, it's going to impact my sleep.
Okay. My last question is also about regulations and or programs and initiatives. Have you considered any initiative, for example, with the different regulators for sleep? Such as schools, education regulators, or ministries or whatever across the region?
Now, this is where I truly, truly feel that we can make the biggest impact. We live in this...
If no regulations, at least initiatives.
But what we have to recognise is we live in this incredible country. It's can-do attitude. It loves to be that having the best building, the
Yes.
tallest building, the first to do this. And we can be the first country in the world to start putting sleep first. You know, it's like years ago when I was growing up, nobody wore seatbelts.
Yes.
The government then initiated
Yes.
the clunk click,
Yes.
and so we now had a public
Yes.
health campaign.
Yes.
Everybody now will not drive in the car because
Yes.
we know how dangerous it is.
Yes.
Smoking the same. We now
Yes.
know
We
how
used
dangerous.
to, till the 80s, we used to fly, and even on the plane,
Yep.
people used to
Yep.
smoke in the rear side of the plane.
Yeah, exactly. Now we need to do the same with sleep. We have to work together with the government. This is where the more information we
Yeah.
give to people...
That's exactly why we are interviewing you, Ms. Julie. So what is the dialogue with the different stakeholders to develop such initiatives?
So I
Not
have-
necessarily regulations,
Yeah.
but rather...
So education is really important.
Yes.
Education is the key.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
But we have to place it in such a way that we are not lecturing,
Yes.
but helping people understand the importance of sleep when it comes to our children achieving
Yes.
the best results, when it comes to, you know, I want to sleep well because I want to have a long and healthy lifestyle till I'm in
Yes.
maybe 100.
Yes.
But I want my lifespan to be healthy. I don't want to be sitting in a wheelchair.
Yes.
And I know that sleep is going to give me that. I have a responsibility to my husband and my 3 daughters that I am around for them and enjoy life to the maximum.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
sleep is going to give us
Yeah.
that. That's where we have to speak with the schools.
Yeah. Are we seeing any dialogue, any programs?
Not enough.
Not enough, unfortunately.
Not enough.
How can we elevate that?
Well, I think programs, and there are programs out there where we do work very closely with the school, but equally with the insurance companies. We need to get them on board so it becomes a wellness facility that we have, so people really do take responsibility
Insurance
for their
companies.
health. Yeah, yeah.
Mrs. Julie, thank you very much for being with
welcome.
us today.
Thank you. Thank you.